Okay, so look, let's make a start. Hi everyone and welcome. Before we do get going properly, the first thing I want to do is to make sure that we're all in the right places. We're going to have a chat today about what being a more confident presenter might look like for you. So if you don't aspire to be a more confident presenter, or you're not even vaguely curious, you may just possibly be in the wrong place. But assuming you're not, logistics-wise, the aim, with a bit of a nod to TED Talk timings, is to share some thoughts and perspectives with you for around 20 minutes or so, providing some time for feedback and any questions, wrapping up no later than on the half hour, which I hope is okay and in line with everyone's expectations. But before we do start, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Dave Martin, and for over 3.5 decades, I worked in small and large business environments, latterly running high-performance teams in the tech sector. And today, as a coach, I apply what is essentially a forward-looking, non-directive discipline that helps to equip leaders to face new challenges. Presenting could just be one of those, with confidence, commitment, and accountability. Now, strictly speaking, coaches don't offer guidance based upon their own experiences, but I may just bend the rules a little on that today and offer up one or two words of advice based upon my own experiences as we progress along. So look, the reason I have to assume that you're here today spending your valuable time listening to me is because you believe that you will be or will certainly feel more accomplished at something if your confidence as a presenter is heightened. It may be that you've recently taken on a new leadership role at work and you'll be expected to hold court at weekly team meetings with credibility and gravitas. Or perhaps you've been asked to deliver an intimidating keynote speech on your area of expertise at an upcoming conference or whatever. Because whatever it is, confidence is a very personal construct, unique to you. But the process, if I can put it that way, of helping you to run towards that challenge with new vigor is ostensibly the same regardless. But look, here's the main gotcha, the fundamental caveat to everything we're going to talk about today, and that it's highly, highly unlikely that you'll conclude your time with me today with the natural, innate ability to orate to thousands, just like, let's say, Barack Obama, for instance. So unless you've already an accomplished orator, like an Obama, Clinton, Luther King, Mandela, or whoever, I'd question what you're actually doing here. But let's assume for the purposes of progress that you're not. Because at this stage, you might just be wondering a little, if this guy isn't here today to tell me how to be a more confident presenter, what the heck is he here to tell me? Now, as I said, as a coach, I don't teach people how to be better presenters. I don't teach people how to be better anything, in fact. I fundamentally don't teach people. Instead, I use a framework that they can use themselves that will help them to become the best version of themselves at whatever discipline, goal, or aspiration it is that they wish to accomplish. Just so we're absolutely crystal clear on that. But what I can tell you with absolute sincerity is that facing a new challenge, whatever that challenge is so much easier when someone has your back, is helping you to see the future with renewed clarity and an action plan with defined milestones and accountability, which is probably or possibly why Bill Gates once famously said that everyone actually needs a coach. Okay, so look, if you came here today looking for someone to tell you how to present with greater confidence, I suspect that you're already a little disappointed, if not considering leaving early. Let's be honest though, there are lots of TED Talk events or similar that you could attend where someone who's clearly mastered the art of public speaking will seek to impart some nuggets of wisdom. And I certainly encourage you to watch or attend them, as I'm sure they'll be beneficial. But here's the thing. These speakers, these accomplished speakers, they have no way of knowing where you are today, where you want to be, or what your version of confidence means for you personally. So what I want you to think about, and I actually want you to write this down if you have a pen and paper to hand, is why is it that you want to be more confident? Why do you want to be a more confident presenter? What exactly is the goal that you're trying to achieve today? Write it down. And then think about that for a moment, as most people will also have some element of time-bound objective that they're also working towards. a job interview, perhaps, that conference speech I spoke about, a new promotion or whatever, there will typically be something out there that if it's not giving you restless nights right now, it's still a prospect in the future. That if you don't feel you have the skills in your locker today, you want to be able to draw upon them with ease at some point in the future. Now, that's the first thing. But the second thing I want you to think about, and again, write this down if you can, is how will you know that you've become that sufficiently confident presenter? What will be happening for you at that point? How will you be feeling? How precisely will you know that your mission has been accomplished? How will you know when you've met that goal? And that goal, by the way, of confidence will be very different for everyone. Confidence for you might be that you don't face blind panic in the moments leading to the point you stand up in front of an audience anymore. Maybe you simply want to be able to hold eye contact with an audience, referring only occasionally to some notes on prompter cards, rather than simply reading the bullets from your slides like you used to. Or perhaps your aim is to speak with complete composure as a subject matter expert to an audience of hundreds without any aids at all, no written notes, no slides, just you. And then once you've figured out what confident looks like for you, think about how you'll be feeling at that point. You'll feel great, right? You'll have achieved everything that you set out to do. You'll have achieved your very personal version of confidence. So look, we have some basics now. We've got a deadline of some sort that you're working towards, and a definition that is entirely personal to you of what you'll be capable of delivering with newfound confidence by the time that deadline does actually come around. But there's got to be more to it than that, for sure. Of course there is. Because it's important at this stage to be honest with yourself. Think about where you are today, where you want to be, and by when. And then ask yourself, how realistic is that? Give yourself a little reality check. Are you maybe setting yourself an unrealistic aim? Are you setting yourself up to fail from the outset by simply being overly ambitious? Where are you today in terms of being that version of confident that you've defined for yourself? And what have you done? What have you actually done so far to achieve it? Only you know the answers to these questions. So look, if you've rarely ever spoken publicly before and the prospect terrifies you, yet you're still expecting to knock it out of the park at a critical customer pitch in a week's time, you probably need to have a very strong word with yourself. But let's assume that isn't the case, and you are being realistic about your aim, your version of confident. Now is the time to look back and think about some of the things that you've achieved before, difficult, uncomfortable things perhaps that you've achieved previously, excuse me, in the face of adversity. Things that you and others perhaps didn't think you were capable of, but you've proved that you were. Think about those things and think about how you'd approach them then. And again, think about how that made you feel. You want to feel like that again, don't you? You've done it before, so you know you can do it again. But of course, it's still not quite that simple, is it? Because you need to know from where you're going to source the energy necessary to do that. What might you be willing to sacrifice? What obstacles might you face? What's within your power and what isn't? It's important that you understand and recognize these points, because if you don't, you will never have an achievable plan that will define what you need to do, what skills, resources, and experience you can draw upon whilst working backwards from that deadline that you set or that's been set for you. Imagine that conference speech, whatever, humour me. Imagine that conference speech is precisely 1 month away now. And you know how you want to deliver it. You know because you've already decided what your version of confident is. But what actions can you take starting today that will give you a realistic and viable plan to deliver it? Okay, so now I want you to be willing to think creatively. I'm not asking you to commit yourself to anything just yet, but what I want you to consider is what might you do? What can you do that will move you one step closer to being that version of confident by the date your deadline comes around? What possible options do you have? What is it that's going into your realistic and viable plan? Now, as a reminder, it's not my job to tell you what to do at this stage, as only you know what confident looks like, and only you know by when you need to be there. But in the interest of creative thinking, let's consider a few things that you might do. Maybe there's a role model at work you aspire to be like, that person who holds an audience with gravitas when they talk. Great. What is it that they do? Write it down. What is it that they don't do? Note that down as well. And then you want to start to build a list of bullets that reads things like, I don't know, solicits questions from an audience, pauses for reflection, lots of eye contact, never reads a slide, demonstrative, hands never in pockets, and so on. Similarly, you might watch a video or two in actual fact online of folks who you feel you aspire to present like. What do they do? And what don't they do? Look at it and copy it perhaps. I want you to also consider what your best friend might tell you to do. Someone who knows you best and that you trust implicitly to give you the home truth, warts and all. Someone who'll be honest with you about what you need to do to get where you want to be by the date that deadline comes around. Think about some things that you perhaps wouldn't normally do. Real left field stuff. I don't know, maybe using AI to help us, something like that perhaps. Let your ideas flow. As remember, you're not committing to anything at this stage. You're just looking at what's possible. What options do you have? What might go into your plan? Do you get where we're going with this? So I want you to have a list, ideally an extensive list, of things that you could do that will put you on track to being your version of confident by your deadline date. But before you commit some of those to a plan, your plan, I want you to consider which of them would be the most impactful, the easiest to achieve, the most fun to do. I want you to rank them and filter them in ways that make sense to you, such that you have a short list of things that you are prepared to commit to, your plan, things that you are prepared to commit to today. Now, I'm going to break out of my non-directive coaching mode and tell you one thing that 100% must be in your plan, and one thing that 100% must not. Your plan must, it absolutely must, include sufficient practice time. Time rehearsing in front of a mirror or to your partner or whatever works for you. And equally, your plan must not include anything that supports the notion of winging it, because it'll be okay on the day, won't it? Well, no, it won't actually. So look, the reason that great orators like Obama, Mandela, Churchill, or whoever came across as innate naturals was not because they winged it and hoped for the best, but because they prepared properly and they did this. So whatever else your plan contains, it must contain some time to prepare, practice, and rehearse, and must not support any notion that not doing so will lead to a great outcome, as my friends, it won't. Okay, so look, we're getting there now. We've defined what our own very personal version of confidence looks like. We have a date by which we'd like to be in that position. We've asked ourselves some hard questions to determine how realistic an aim that is for us. And we have a set of prioritized actions in a basic plan format that should get us there. The one thing we're lacking right now, of course, are some times and dates against each of those items in the plan. Some of these, some milestones, not millstones, some milestones to keep us accountable. So what you need to do now is physically, mentally, and emotionally commit to each of those items in your plan in an achievable and chronological order that doesn't have you doing them all the night before your deadline. Now, only you know what each of those milestones will be and by when you have to have them done. But please do have an honest word with yourself and put some dates and times next to each that you are willing to commit to and to own. So look, before we start to wrap, and I leave you with an offer to ponder. Let me just share some of my own experiences. Years ago, I was watching. It was actually Bill Clinton, and yep, I am that old. I was watching Bill Clinton hold a packed auditorium in the palm of his hands with words. It made me at the time resolve to get better at presenting, and I hurriedly booked myself onto various presentation skills and public speaking courses. One in particular sticks in my mind. I'll never forget it in actual fact. I turned up expecting some wizened old executive to impart some tips and tricks, but instead I was met by an actor from the Bristol Old Vic Theatre. And what he left me with is that presenting and public speaking is fundamentally the same as acting. You're the star of the show. You're providing the entertainment. Now, whether that is strictly true in a business context is a moot point. But the point is, and it was provocative enough to make me think my approach at least, or rethink my approach. During the course of the course, we had to deliver a 15-minute presentation on anything we liked. And here's the kicker. We had to do it without any slides or any aids other than some notes, if that's what we needed. Now, clearly that doesn't work all too well in a remote context like Zoom or Teams, particularly where you're sharing facts and figures. But the point is still well made. People can read slides. They don't need you to do it for them. His point being, don't let your slides be the star of the show when you should be. That's not to say don't use slides, but don't let them become the star of the show. You are the star of the show. So like I said at the start of today's discussion, I have no way of knowing what confident means to you in the context of presenting or public speaking. But whether it's simply to be able to hold eye contact with a room whilst running a team meeting, being confident enough to present without notes for the first time perhaps, or wow an audience just like Clinton. My advice, the advice I'm not supposed to give you as a coach, would be to remember that you are the star of the show, the entertainment. Set yourself an outcome that you're comfortable with, build a plan, and practice again, and then practice again. Let me leave you with a reminder about what this process is meant to feel like. If you were the orator that you really wanted to be already, you probably wouldn't be here right now. So it's important that you accept the process of change will not necessarily be an entirely comfortable one. For the inimitable Ted Lasso, I don't know whether everybody's familiar with Ted Lasso, but brilliant, brilliant TV. So as the inimitable Ted Lasso puts it, if you're comfortable while you're doing it, you're probably doing it wrong. Now, I hope that's been a thought-provoking few minutes, but before we do that, let me leave you with an offer to consider. I'm offering everyone here today a free 60-minute confident presenting remote one-day coaching session to be taken up before the end of June. So if you have a presentation that's looming on the horizon that you want to prepare for and you feel that you would need or you would welcome a little bit of help and support, somebody to hold you accountable as you prepare yourself for that presentation, then please feel free to reach out to me. Book that 60-minute confident presenting coaching session free of charge before the end of June. And Quang, you can contact me via pretty much any of the usual social media channels, or by email at dave@davidmartincoaching.net. So that's dave@davidmartincoaching.net, or simply visit my website, davidmartincoaching.net, and you can connect with me that way. So thank you so much for joining the discussion today. I hope that's been useful, and I wish you all the very best on your own journey to being a better presenter.